which teams are we most surprised actually made it to the dance this year? Jimbo, you want to lead us off on that one?
Yeah, sure. The one I'm most surprised made it, it's got to be the Montreal Canadiens. You look at their roster, and yes, they made the playoffs last year. They managed to, do surprisingly well, but they're such a young team. I know, especially looking at the Canadian division, I definitely didn't have them as a pick to make it in. So, they've done all right. I think they're gonna have a really difficult time against Toronto. A lot of people think that they're gonna get swept, but you can never count this team out, and I think I've learned my lesson not to count them out in the regular season, at least.
Yeah, definitely 2 years in a row where Montreal was the worst team to make the playoffs once again. This year they're below two NHL teams for stats, and yet they still make the dance just because they played in the atrocious North Division, and Calgary really can't pull a win out of their butt if they wanted to. JJ, who are you most surprised by?
I'm most surprised by the Minnesota Wild. Lots of people would have had them in the playoffs, in the fourth position. For me, it's more just how convincingly they made it in. They were never in any doubt in the season, and I think they surprised a lot of people with just how well they've been playing. It looks like at the moment that they're going to play Vegas if the Colorado game ends. I believe it's 5-1 right now, so as long as that finishes the way it does. And, anything can happen there. They've been very surprising.
Yeah, definitely a big shock that Minnesota, not really adding a lot to their roster besides Kaprizov this season, but I guess that was really enough to shake things up for them. Connor, who do you got that's the most surprising?
See, I was thinking about Minnesota because Minnesota's been really, if you looked at this team going into the season, you looked at that center depth, you're like, this is not an NHL team and not one that can win the playoffs because Eriksson Ek is your top line center in Minnesota. But the team I'm most surprised about actually is the Nashville Predators. They somehow have worse center depth than Minnesota. Still made the playoffs, as well as the defensive depth is just absolute burning hot garbage, right? Like David Ference and Dante Fabro's your first pair. That is a third line. That's a third pairing on almost any other team. That is hot garbage.
I think that's because they have a lot of injuries right now and are resting players as well.
Yeah, but they made a late push to make the playoffs, which is even more surprising to me.
It was all in the back of Saros, right? The first half of the season, they went great, and then out of nowhere, Saros has been, unbelievable. 0.96 save percentage in the last second half of the season or something like that. He's really stood on his head.
I think that's the only reason why they made the playoffs, to be honest. Because they have Ryan Johansson followed by Rem Pitlick. That's their top two centers.
Is Duchesne playing on the wing then? Yeah. I don't even need to know. Oh gosh.
They got Duchesne on the right wing. Austin, who do you have for your most surprising, I should say?
This team made it a bit more, convincingly in the playoffs, but nonetheless, I am still shocked and appalled, and that is the Florida Panthers. Every year, at the start of the year, I go, yep, they're going to make it. This is the year, Florida. And then they suck, and they let me down. And so this year I went, they're not making it. I've given up on rooting for these guys, and they kept winning, and I'm like, oh, come on, surely a team with Bobrovsky this day and age can't make the playoffs. And here they are. Coach Quenneville really got to Huberdeau and Barkov. They were fantastic this year. Carter Verhaeghe was an insane ad. I think their new GM's really good with the analytics department, and that's why they kept finding these under-the-radar guys. And, a guy that a team gave up on too early, Sam Bennett came over, got 15 points in 10 games, beat Bure's record for most points in 10 games.
All right, bud.
Should have held on to him maybe, and they'd be in the playoffs, but, I'm very surprised they're making it to the dance.
Too early has been in the league for 6 to 7 years. Too early.
He beat a Bury record.
Could I?
I mean, yeah, good for Sam Bennett. I'll give him that. But
is every episode just going to be the Sam Bennett special?
Potentially. But if you want to hear more about Sam Bennett, check out our second episode.